All right, what's up, YouTube? This is BoxingWave, and let's talk Terence Bud Crawford. All right, it's official now. He will be fighting Egidijus Kavaliauskas, the Mean Machine. Okay, that's how most of you know him. This is a mandatory fight, but we know that he holds the WBO title at 147, and this is his mandatory. This is a guy he has to fight. Okay, how do I feel about it? I mean, I've checked out the Mean Machine. I watched his fights ever since I found out that he was the #1 ranked guy. I went back and watched some of his fights. I watched the Ray Robinson fight, which was his last fight, which was a draw, and it wasn't an impressive performance, okay? But other than that fight, he's looked very impressive. He's knocked out the majority of the opponents he's faced. Okay, he has good power in both hands. He's very explosive. He's fun to watch the fight. He's fun to watch. I really don't have any complaints against him. Do I have any desire to watch him fight Bud? Not really. I mean, I think he has a puncher's chance, but outside of that, I really don't think he has much of a chance. And there's plenty of fighters that Bud has faced that had a puncher's chance in winning, okay, against them. But he's outboxed and stopped the majority of them. It is what it is. But this is his mandatory, and you know how I feel about mandatories. It is what it is. It's part of the sport. The only time I really complain about mandatories is when they definitely just don't randomly belong there. Like when a guy is the mandatory for a title and he just lost his last fight or the fight before that. It's like, dude, it's like, how did you get to that position? And I'll talk more about that in just later in this video. All right, but the Mean Machine is not a bum. All right. He's not a bad fighter at all. It's just I really don't have any desire to see him fight Terence Bud Crawford. But there's a lot of things I don't desire. I hate mandatories that they're there when these fighters only fight 2 times a year, if that. So when the mandatory comes in, one of the 2 or 3 fights, it's like, damn, like I gotta see a fighter that I probably don't want to see, because usually the mandatory is someone that I don't want to see or don't really know that well, or maybe not that good, against one of the top fighters in some divisions, like this one. All right, so it is what it is. But I think as far as the fight, I think Kavaliauskas is obviously the least proven out of the 3 fighters that Bud had fought at welterweight. He fought Mir Khan, who's a lot more proven even at welterweight than him. Benavidez who's not really that much more proven either, but he was a bigger fighter, and I thought he was a very good counterpuncher. All right, I had no problem with that fight. I thought that was a cool fight. And then you had Jeff Horn, who was holding the title, who just fought Manny Pacquiao. And even if you thought, most people, we all pretty much thought that Manny Pacquiao won the fight, we can all agree that Bud Crawford destroyed Jeff Horn. Didn't even make it look close, and people failed to bring that up. Like, people totally erase that win, like, as if it doesn't mean anything anymore, because of these double standards and these die-hard Spence fans and the PBC fanboys and shit like that. I think their takes on it, and let's get into it, because there's so many double standards that we can really go into, and it's just too many to list at this point. Now listen, I'm cool with anyone that has an issue with this fight. If you don't want to see the fight, like I said, I even said it myself, I have no desire to see this fight. I'm going to watch it because I love Bud, and I'm going to watch his fights. I want to see him. I'll watch him fight anyone. I don't really care. All right. But I do want Bud. I want Bud to fight the better fighters. I've said on this channel, I wish Bud had signed to the PBC, because that's where the action at. And I know he really wants to fight these guys, and I know he's not ducking these fighters. All right. It's just that, when did the fans get to a point where we're telling the fighters where to sign? Especially when fights are made on a regular basis between ESPN, The Zone, PBC, Golden Boy, Top Rank, Matchroom, whatever. These fights are always constantly being made between these fighters. You know what I'm saying? So I don't understand why it's such a big deal. But, that's what it is. That's what the YouTubers are doing, and even some of the new media is doing. So, unfortunately, we're at that point. And listen, if you feel a certain way about Bud fighting this guy, make sure you have the same standards for everybody else. You know, like Crawford. I mean, not Errol Spence recently fought Ocampo a couple fights ago. If you didn't have a problem with that, why have a problem with this? You know, if you didn't have a problem with fighting a guy that moved up from 135, Mikey Garcia, why didn't you have a problem with that? But you have a problem with this. I mean, at least this guy is a welterweight. You know what I'm saying? At the very least, you know, I don't think he's the most proven, but I don't think he's a bum neither. Calling him a bum, how's he a bum? When did he get exposed as a bum? You know, he has one draw and he's a bum. Like, he's knocked out almost everybody he's faced. So calling him a bum is a little over the top. And you know, like you guys gotta stick. There's two issues: the double standards. We have not Devin. I'm sorry. We have Danny Garcia. All right, Danny Garcia did similar to what Bud did, and you know he moved up from 140. He was unified on 140, moved up. All right, fought Paulie Malignaggi. Who cares? You know, if Spence fought him or if Bud fought him, people will probably complain about it. It is what it is. That's how it is. It's Paulie Malignaggi is an older Malignaggi at that time, but it was his first. It was Danny's first fight at 147, even though he's naturally bigger than Paulie, even though Paulie wasn't really a 147 pounder like that. Yeah, it was his first fight up, you know. Danny Garcia goes up, fights what? Who does he fight? Robert Guerrero for a title? How did Guerrero even become a #1 spot or a #2 spot to fight for a WBC title? You know, what did he do to get that title match? You know, did he beat someone that just lost their last fight? You know, but that's cool. He got an opportunity to win a title, an easy title, a vacant title. All right, goes off, wins that fight, loses to Keith Thurman at some point, losing a unification match. Right, loses his title, beats a Brandon Rios or someone, and gets another title shot against Sean Porter. I mean, what did Danny do besides beat Robert Guerrero, what's his face, Brandon Rios, and Adrian Granados at welterweight? But they say Bud hasn't done shit at welterweight. But why does Danny Garcia keeps getting titles against a Sean Porter, a Keith Thurman, and even now an Errol Spence? What has he done at welterweight? Fighting someone at a division is not a resume, as part of your resume, if you don't win any of your big fights. See, at least with Sean Porter, yeah, he lost a couple. He lost to Spence. He lost to Thurman now. Well, he lost to Spence now. He lost to Thurman. He lost to Kell Brook. Right? Thurman and Spence fights were debatable. They were very, very debatable. But Sean Porter has put in work as a welterweight throughout his whole career. His whole career he did that. And he's won against a Danny Garcia. You know, he's won against other big fighters, former champions. He's won those fights. Danny Garcia hasn't done that. But you guys are cool with Spence fighting him. Did Danny Garcia accomplish more as a welterweight than Bud Crawford? No, he hasn't. He hasn't. But everybody's cool with that. And another issue that we're having with Bud and these double standards, I think people are forgetting. I don't know if they're new fans and they don't really understand how pound for pound works. Okay, pound for pound is there for the lower divisions, the smaller guys that are dominating their respected weight class. Okay, Bud, who was fighting at 135 for a long period of his career, fighting at 140, 135, 140 before going to 147, got pound for pound from what he did before he got to welterweight. Okay, now the fighters that he's faced up to this point, he stopped those guys at welterweight. All right, they're not the very, very best, but Amir Khan is not bad. You know, Amir Khan is not bad. Benavidez is not bad. You know, he's not the best, but he's not bad either. Amir Khan accomplished a lot. And then you had Jeff Horn, who was undefeated, who just got into a very controversial fight with Manny Pacquiao. But can we at least agree that it was a competitive fight before Bud got in the ring with him. He was a competitive fighter, you know? So I think people are forgetting what pound for pound means. And I've seen plenty of not only channels, which is pretty embarrassing, but you got people leaving in the comments, even in my comments, saying that Bud ain't, whatever Bud did before 147 doesn't mean shit. I'm hearing and I'm hearing that, and I'm reading a lot of comments of people saying that. And I'm like, all right, are you holding that same standard for everybody else? Because if Errol can beat everybody that Bud faced, which I believe he can, all right, but what about the guys that's above Errol? What about the guys that's at 154? You know, because are you holding them to be better than Errol as a pound for pound fighter just because they're bigger guys and they would beat anybody? Because anybody, Golovkin would whip anybody that's at, or Canelo can whip anybody that's at 147, or both of them. They would beat anyone that's at 147. You know, we saw what happened with Golovkin did to Kell Brook. I mean, you guys love the fact, and I love it too. I give Spence his props all the time for beating Kell Brook. I'm not a hater. But look what the Golovkin did to Kell Brook. Shouldn't Golovkin be higher on the pound for pound list than Errol Spence because of that win? Based on your logic, you guys' logic, you know, let's move one step above that to the 168 or the 175 guys. You know, we're going to just keep comparing because these guys, these bigger guys are going to beat anyone that Errol Spence or Terence Bud Crawford for. It is what it is. Pound for pound is there to separate the weight classes. This guy is doing this in that weight class, you know, and this guy is doing that. You know, I'm not going to sit here and say Lomachenko is only better than Inoue because he would beat everybody down at 118. Obviously, you know, this is why the Mikey Garcia fight was a mismatch, because Mikey is the one that's challenging himself, not Errol Spence. You know, and I know that fight made him. I mean, as far as promotion, as far as strategy, that fight made Errol Spence a star. So I see why they took the fight, but technically it's a mismatch because Mikey is a much smaller guy. And even though he won a title at 140, he didn't fight the best title holder at 140. Okay? And he fought one guy at 140. One title holder. Alright? He didn't fight Josh Taylor. He didn't fight Regis Prograis. Okay? He didn't fight Jose Ramirez. He didn't fight Maurice Hooker. And I think he might beat a couple of those guys. So all I'm saying is, listen, you gotta make sense, like be realistic about it. I know pound for pound today is being used improperly. Like, I know a lot of the networks and the promoters are using pound for pound in a way to promote their fighter. You know, they were doing that with what's his name, Chocolatito. HBO was doing that with him, and they were still doing it with Bud and Lomachenko. You know, Lomachenko, it didn't take long for them to call him pound for pound. It is what it is. It's part of promoting the fighter. It is what it is. They do it, you know. But at the end of the day, pound for pound, which is totally subjective, it doesn't mean, oh, you know, you come to welterweight. It depends on what you're doing at welterweight. He just got there. He's been there for 2 years now. He's been there for 2 years, but he's chasing the other champions at that division. And they are freezing them. They are literally freezing them out. They are freezing Bud out because he's a WBO champ. They are freezing him out. And to be honest, a lot of the PBC fanboys are cool with that. Like, they're riding behind that. Like, I'm at a point now where I believe that these guys don't really want Bud and Spence to fight. And I've said this in other videos, and there's people in the comments that saying, well, Bud needs to put in his work before he gets Spence. What? Are you serious? This guy's holding a title. Did Danny Garcia put in his work? He lost a couple fights. Listen, oh my God. I don't know, man. I'm really convinced now that people don't want the fight. People, you know what this reminds me of? This reminds me of Floyd and Manny Pacquiao. Uh, because before that fight, I think people, especially channels, a lot of their channels were based on that fight. And a lot of arguments that were made were about, doping, and they were comparing resumes, Pacquiao moving up, beating guys quicker than Floyd did, De La Hoya, Ricky Hatton, Shane Mosley. They were comparing all of those fights and stuff like that. And I think a lot of the fans and the hardcore Pacquiao fans, they like just saying, like, these are all the advantages Pacquiao's over to Floyd, and that Floyd was ducking him and stuff. But when the fight actually got made, man, it was real quiet. It was real quiet on YouTube. It just wasn't the same no more. And anybody that has a YouTube that was there that day can tell you that it wasn't the same. It wasn't the same. The energy wasn't the same. It was different when they announced the fight. All that talk wasn't there anymore. And this reminds me of it, because I think people are satisfied with saying Bud is over there on the top rank. He's on the wrong side of the street. They can't fight. He has to put in work. He has to do this. He ain't fighting nobody. I think people really don't want the fight. They want to just be able to say Spence is better. He has a better resume. He's pound for pound. And that's it. They don't want to actually see the fight. I'm not hearing people say, man, put Bud, I'm not hearing people break down why Spence would win. I don't hear many of those. All I'm hearing is that Spence got this, Spence got that, Spence did this with the pay-per-views, Spence is over here with the PBC, Bud should have signed, why he stick with Bob Arum this, Bob Arum. I'm hearing all of that. But I'm not hearing no breakdowns. I'm not hearing a bunch of people. And I tell you, when that fight get announced, it's going to be quiet. It's going to be real quiet. And listen, Spence is great. Spence, I think the only person that can beat Spence or has a chance of beating Spence right now, welterweight, is Bud. I think he beat all the other guys. But y'all got to chill out with the double standards, all right? I'm not trying to big up this fight. I'm not trying to hype up this fight with the meme machine or nothing like that. I ain't that kind of fan. All right, I'm not no fanboy. I already told you how I feel about Bud and the decisions that Bob Arum needs to do everything. I mean, he's a promoter. Bob Arum got to do whatever he has to do to get Bud his fight. That's his job. Bud signed with you, make it work. Whatever you got to do, put Al on the phone, to throw whatever money, you got to invest in your fighter. So do whatever you got to do to make them fights. But at the end of the day, like, y'all got to chill out with the fanboy shit. Y'all taking it a little too far. You taking it a little too far. Hold the same standards. You guys are going to glorify the hell out of that Sean Porter win. And I understand, that's a good win. But when Keith Thurman was out injured and he was unified and he was talking about coming back to fight Sean Porter in a rematch, and a fight that was a well-deserved rematch, and Spence didn't really have a resume like that, you guys were going crazy because Keith was talking about fighting Sean Porter or Danny Garcia. When he fought Danny Garcia, you guys were going crazy. Some of you guys that were on here fanboying or at that time was already saying that, well, Keith is ducking Spence by fighting a Danny Garcia or doing a Sean Porter rematch. But it's great that Spence fought Sean Porter. But you would have been mad if Thurman fought Sean Porter in a rematch. Or you were mad when Thurman fought Manny Pacquiao instead of Spence. Or you were mad when Thurman fought Danny Garcia instead of Spence. These are what people were saying at this time. I remember. I'm not forgetting all of this stuff. Some of you guys are new. I'm gonna bring this up to your attention. These were things that people in my comments that YouTubers were making videos about, saying in their YouTube channels, like, yo, Keith is ducking these guys that Spence was trying to fight. You know? Spence was ducking, or Keith was ducking him by fighting the same guys. Like, that you want Bud to face. What kind of shit is that? You know? Even though I believe that Keith, now I believe that Keith really probably didn't want to fight Spence at that time. But it's not like he was taking easier fights. He didn't take any easy fights. He fought Josecito Lopez, which ended up being a tougher fight than expected. But that was his comeback fight. That was his first fight back. You know, what was he supposed to do? He was gone for 2 years. 2 years. And he was rusty. You know? He's a little rusty. So, listen, man. I think I can keep giving you a million examples of why this stuff is getting ridiculous. Pound for pound, if you think Spence is pound for pound, that's cool. If you think that Bud ain't pound for pound, that's your opinion. I really don't care. I mean, that's not an argument. But what I'm saying about pound for pound is that you gotta understand that it's based on the different weight classes. That's why it's pound for pound. It's not based on the welterweight division. All right? Spence, as a welterweight, has a better resume than Bud Crawford. Duh. Okay? But if anybody thinks that Bud is pound for pound more or higher on that list, it's because everything he's accomplished as a fighter moving up. You know what I'm saying? This is why Pacquiao is praised so much, because this dude got champions in 8 different divisions. Spence has been fighting at 147 and 154 his whole career. He's supposed to have a better resume than that. All right? Than that guy. So anyway, I'm going to leave it at that, man. The fight is on, and hopefully by next year, you know, Spence still fights Danny Garcia next. Hopefully by next year we'll get a unification match. You know, if he doesn't fight Manny Pacquiao, hopefully we could get Spence and Bud by 2020, and then we could kill all this back and forth talk. You know, and hopefully neither one of them lose by then. You know, because you never know, man. I mean, the Mean Machine, I don't really see him beating Crawford, but you never know. He definitely has a puncher's chance at the very least. And then Danny Garcia, who I don't think is going to lose to Spence neither, but a lot more proven than the Mean Machine. Hopefully, you know, hopefully he doesn't pull up the upset and beat Spence. But the chances are a lot more likely in that fight. You know, and this is why I want the fights to happen, because I don't want another Anthony Joshua, Deontay Wilder situation. Okay, I don't know when those two are probably never going to fight ever. Until they're old and washed up, when nobody cares anymore. Alright, so drop your comments. Make sure you guys subscribe, like the video, or dislike it. And see you in the next one. Peace.